You said this place was steps from the water.
We just haven't found the steps yet.
How much did we save?
Enough.
Enough to get lost?
Or you could book a stay with Hilton.
Welcome to your oceanfront room, just steps from the water.
The Hilton sale is on now. Book on Hilton.com or the Hilton app and save up to 20% to get the stay you expected. When you want savings, not surprises, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell a no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest this week is Maria Semple, the author of one of my favourite books of all time, Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Once encountered, Bernadette Fox is never forgotten. And I wasn't alone in my love. Bernadette sold over 200,000 copies in the UK alone, was translated into 40 languages, shortlisted for the Women's Prize, and made into a movie starring Cate Blanchett. Maria, who was previously a TV writer for Saturday Night Live and Arrested Development, amongst others, has written 2 other novels, and now she's back with a 4th, Go Gentle. Already an Oprah Bookclub pick, it's a story of midlife transformation, mothers, daughters, art theft, stoicism, and Upper West Side covens. Like all her books, Go Gentle is stuffed full of home truths, big ideas, and is riotously, snortingly funny.
All of my memories of New York are actually really joyful and happy and optimistic, of just like all the fun, wild scenarios that were going on various corners or, clubs or things. And so I think in terms of like a geographical, I do think that if you're starting over, then it is kind of fun to have a blank canvas. I actually think that that's a healthy way of not setting yourself up for failure.
I met Maria when she was on a flying visit to the UK at her publisher's office overlooking the Thames to talk about midlife's dirty little secret, the freedom she found post-divorce, the joy of not having to ask permission, and doing a geographical. We also discussed why midlife is a time of metabolization, if that's a word, how stoicism kept her sane when her coping mechanisms packed up, and why her favourite company is other women. So lovely to see you.
Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you.
I loved it. I absolutely loved Go Gentle, I think. And you know how much I loved Bernadette.
Yes.
I feel like Go Gentle might be my book. Might be for me.
I love that, because if I had an ideal reader, it really would be you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it was worth the journey. And you've travelled more than me. I can't complain. Where do we start? Well, let's start with Adora. Mm-hmm. And let's start with the kind of dirty little secret of midlife. As your publishers put, it's not dirty. It's the best secret.
Yes.
That actually, we were all just getting started.
So that was really one of the main things I was interested in, is because most of my books have a huge autobiographic component. And I wrote this in my late 50s, very late 50s, maybe into when I was 60. And I had just gotten divorced and I was single, living in New York. I looked around and I felt like men were kind of on the way down a little bit, that they were at the end of their careers, feeling like they were getting squeezed out of their careers, not kind of understanding what was coming up behind them. And I mean, this is a gross generalization.
That's fine.
But
Generalizations are welcome here.
exactly. But just kind of appalled at what was happening to them, as they aged. And I felt like women had a completely different attitude about it. Women at the same age were feeling smarter, wiser, more confident, wanting to take more risks, and like they were just getting started, And I just thought the life force of my friends, the women my age, married, single, I think once the kids leave the house, you just are like, let's go,
Yeah.
And so I love that energy, and I was really feeling it. And I thought that it would be just a really interesting thing to kind of explore in a book, to have someone at that moment in her life where she's feeling that in a society that is basically telling her, go away. We don't want to look at you. You bum us out because I don't want to catch what you have, and just that tension between actually feeling like totally self-empowered, like you don't give a shit. And then people trying to just dismiss you and make you invisible. I just thought there was something really interesting there.
Yeah, it's so, I think about this such a lot. As the listeners will know, we go, oh, here she goes. I talk about it all the time because I just think there's such a fascinating disconnect between how we're feeling and how the world thinks we should be feeling.
Yes.
Or tells us we should be feeling.
Yes.
So it's like, almost like the builds up to it. It's like the dread of it because you're told it's awful. And then when I certainly noticed once I got into my late 40s, I had people going from the other side of 50 going, it's great over here.
Right.
And then, now I look at, I'm 60 this year, and I look at, there's so many women in their 60s doing great things.
Yes.
And I think, did we just not look? Were we not paying attention?
Well, I think it's internalized misogyny, which is what also I wrote about, is that in my novel, in Go Gentle, as I write a lot about that, about this, when Adora was coming up when she was younger and all the internalized misogyny that she had. And even, it's interesting because even when I say, if somebody asks me, oh, how are you doing? It's been 2.5 years since my divorce, moved from Seattle to New York, living by myself. People ask how I'm doing. And I say, I'm doing really well, and that I just finished a novel. I'm excited about that. Even hearing myself say it, I feel like they don't believe me. And I feel like I get into this weird, like kind of manic thing of trying to convince them, because just the message of society, like you say, is so strong that it's even in me. I'm just like, oh, they don't believe it. And in fact, I will say almost the darkest things ever get for me, when your like head hits the pillow, is I think like, is this a lie? Am I not actually this happy? Even though I really embody it, I actually don't trust it, I think, on the deepest level because of all the messages of society. I'm supposed to be like lonely and unlovable and nobody wants to pick me as a woman and all this stuff, but I really don't feel that.
No, and I don't know anybody who feels that, actually. Mm-hmm. Thinking about when I was researching the Shift book, which is what led to the podcast, and I had this focus group of 50 women, and of the ones who were separated, divorced, whatever, probably only 1 or 2 was like, actually, I don't like this. This is not what I want. On the whole, it skewed much more towards women, not everyone, but a lot of them, towards women who were like, done here, actually.
Yes.
There's one woman who I quote quite a lot who said, I like my husband, but, he just wants to play golf and get a takeaway on the way home. And that is not what I want for the rest of my life.
Yes.
So it kind of goes back to what you were saying. It's like there's all these ideas about what we should want. And I'm really interested that it's at this, all these things happen at this time of life when you go, no, actually, I want to do it a different way.
My favorite company is other women.
Yes.
It's like, maybe it's my age, but it's like, you want to go, but I'm not a lesbian, as if there's anything wrong with that. There's Seinfeld quote, but do you know what I mean? Just to be loud and proud and say my favorite people are my women friends. I feel like, again, society is not letting you prioritize that. it's weirdly not feminine, not to then prefer to kind of be in a couple or to be half of, the woman to the man, to go like, yeah, I don't want any of that. I just want my girlfriends, and they totally get me, and I feel 100% at ease with them. I don't have to apologize. They get it before I even have to say it. Like that's where, like, to me, the real intimacy is. And, I'm not in a relationship now, and I would welcome having a relationship that has that intimacy. It's not like I'm against it, but there's such an ease with women that once you have that, and you've already had the marriage and you've had the kid and you've had everything, you're like, I don't know, why would I be going back to that well, when I have the women in my life?
Yeah, I think there's a friend of mine always says, I wish I was a lesbian. Yes. Because then it would all be done and dusted with this amazing group of women. Right.
Exactly.
I wish I was sexually attracted to them as well, but just unfortunately I'm not.
Right. No, well, in Go Gentle, there's a character who says, I tried it, but it just didn't work for me. Like she was like, when I got divorced, I was like, I know what I need to do is be a lesbian. And she's like, it turns out, no, I like men.
It turns out that's just not, it's not a convenience thing.
That's right. It's like, shoot, I wish that could work for me. Yeah.
So you were all kind of going along swimmingly. You're Bernadette, then Tomorrow Will Be Different, and then everything changed.
Yes. Well, what happened was I wrote those 2 novels, and then afterwards I spent lots of time in television trying to get Today Will Be Different, get to that is for an HBO show. And then I wrote an Apple pilot, and that gobbled up like 6 years of my time, things that didn't get made. But I was in development, I had writing staffs, I had stars attached, it was the whole thing. But then they didn't get made for kind of various reasons. And so I wasn't writing a book. And then when I went to go write a book, I just couldn't make a book happen. I think that I was probably depressed and not realizing it, which is kind of a natural thing at the end of a long-term relationship. You don't leave a long-term relationship if you're happy, if it's working out. So there were wonderful things about it. And my ex, I love and respect very much. Very good person, but we just got in these dynamics we couldn't get out of. And when that happens over a long period of time, I think that you just start to flatten inside. And so I didn't even associate with why I wasn't able to write a novel, because, I'd say one of the things that's very interesting about, and, I don't even want to use the word writer's block because I don't know that I believe in that. But, when you're not writing novels, it's not like you're sitting there at a blank page and you can't think of anything. You're writing a novel. You're there and you're all excited, and it just presents like writing a good novel, and you're writing it. And then you're like, I don't know, does this really work? Is it right? And then you don't know if that part of you is just something that's self-sabotage, that maybe this is really good, but so don't listen to the voice and keep writing it. And it really is just a horrible mindset of just, being excited. I cracked it. I figured it out. It all unravels on you. And then there's a lot of confusion about the unraveling. And then you start over, you start a new project, and then you go back to the old one. So it's a very, at least for me, like very productive time, but it just was, I was not producing anything that was going to be a novel, unknowingly. And so then when things fell apart with my relationship, I then moved from Seattle to New York just because I thought, why not, right? I can move anywhere. And I love New York. And it just occurred to me one day, why wouldn't I just go and move to New York? I had a lot of friends there. I'd gone to college there. I'd done jobs there. So many novelist friends of mine lived there. I love the theater. And so it just seemed like a fun place to work. And then when I was there, I think it was that freedom that I felt and that kind of happiness that really helped me figure out this character. of a Dora Hazard, that I think that I had made some attempts at writing about a woman who was a Stoic, like a philosopher and a Stoic, which I am. I always thought that the Stoic character like needed to be emotionally shut down. And it's very hard to write an emotionally shut down character if you're me. You know, maybe like Elizabeth Strout or something, you know, people who like do like killer jobs of writing emotionally shut down people. And I love it. And it's great. And I will read it forever. But that's not like my thing. You know, I need to have something manic and crazy. Yeah. And so when I decided to make her a Dora, like a Stoic sage who had actually kind of figured out the secret to life through Stoicism and was going through life happy, then I felt like I've got my voice and I've got my book.
This is such a personal interest for me because we moved to Edinburgh about coming up 6 years ago. And I remember somebody saying to me slightly scathingly about doing a geographical.
Right.
And I thought about that a lot. And I did kind of do that beating myself up, thinking about it. Am I in some running away from, you know, what is this move about? That, you know, wherever you go, where you are, all of that
Right, to pull a
stuff.
geographical. It's like an AA. They say that in like AA.
Yeah, it's a real AA thing. But then I was thinking about it. I thought, actually, no, we didn't move away from.
Right.
We moved to.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really important. And all you're listening to you talk, everything you're saying is about the pull of New York.
Yes.
Not about I'd had enough of Seattle at all.
No, very, very much so. And that I think that actually what I didn't realize at the time was, in fact, the place where I would have moved to that I thought I would move to would be Los Angeles, because I had a lot of history as a TV writer there. I have a lot of friends there. But I think that what made this new chapter of my life so freeing was that I moved to a place where I didn't have a lot of history. I think even now when I go back to Los Angeles, I do feel just sad and icky about a lot of things. And with my ex, we spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. So everywhere I go, there's like memories of him and us together, which is sad, you know, like it's just, it hits you in a deep place of like, oh, we were happy there, or we had a horrible fight there, or, oh, that's when something happened that I should have known then that the thing wasn't going to work out, you know, all that stuff. And obviously Seattle is that because that's where I moved from. So I didn't understand what an advantage it would be to go to a place where I didn't have any of that with my ex. You know, I lived there in the 80s.
So
in
it
the
was
late
student,
80s.
more or less.
Yeah, and it was like really during a fun time in New York when I was really running around with this literary crowd and going to clubs and so all of my memories of New York are actually really joyful and happy and optimistic of just like all the fun, wild scenarios that were going on various corners or, you know, clubs or things. And so I think in terms of like a geographical, I do think that if you're starting over, then it is kind of fun to have a blank canvas. I actually think that that's a healthy way of not setting yourself up for failure. You know, and luckily I had a million friends in New York already, you know, so I think if I just moved to Edinburgh or something, that would be different. I'd just be lonely and alone.
You have me.
I have you. I know I'd be relying on you way too heavily. You would be starting to make a lot of excuses. Yes.
Not at all. That's the thing, isn't it? It's the support network, because I suppose I don't have children. I've got stepson who's grown up now. But those kind of like ways of making friends are all gone at this point.
Yes.
So if you were starting from scratch, that would be
at my age,
hard
I
work.
mean, that would be terrible. And it's funny because people who didn't really know me, when I moved to New Yorkers, they'd say, like, join a gym. And I'd be like, no, I don't need to join a gym. Like, I have a gym, but it's really not to strike up conversations on the person on the treadmill next to me. Like, I really don't need that. I have tons of friends. So I do think that that's very important, is the social network. You know, to be able to move, I just slide right into that and pick up right where you left off was really wonderful.
Yeah, and will have made it quite a bit easier. Do you live alone, or do you live like a Dora with your daughter?
That's right. Well, I live with my daughter. She's in college though, so I moved there alone, and she came to visit me from college, but you know, it really was alone. I mean, she has a room, and as if she lives with me. You know, because she spends the vacations.
Fair.
And so it's not like I've kicked her out of the house already. No, I've like made her room very special. And that still does mean a lot to me that she has her room decorated like like her room. Or as I should say, how I envision her room should be decorated. Because she walked in and she's like, what is this stuff? You know? I think I trapped her as like an 8-year-old in the room that I decorated for her. So maybe it's a little
fairy lights.
Exactly. And she's like, okay, whatever, Mom. But alone, very much alone. Yeah. I write during the day. And so I'm really alone during the day, and no one can have lunch with me or can like go on a walk or have coffee with me. I will like bite your head off if you suggest we go out. It's a beautiful day.
You're in lockdown during the day.
I'm in lockdown, or maybe I'll go to the gym by myself, or maybe I'll walk by myself, but it's in lockdown. But I really do go out every single night. Every night I go out, and it's usually friends. It's to dinner parties, it's to the theater. And if I have nothing to do at night, if somebody cancels on me, I will just go to a movie by myself, to a show. I live near Lincoln Center. I'll go to the ballet by myself or the opera. I will always just get out of the house to do something kind of culturally. And then, so when I'm in the house, it's not like, oh, this sad place where I'm always alone. It's like, I get to go back to my house after all the excitement of the city, you know?
I mean, that's the thing about working from home, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have to leave the house,
yes,
then you do have to leave the house.
Yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, you're just going to go completely mad.
Totally mad. And I'm still, 2.5 years into it. Every time I walk into my apartment, I'm just like, yay, I'm home again. Like, I think it is good to spend enough time out so that you're tired and you're just really looking forward to getting in your own bed.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. I can clearly remember starting The Shift. It's such a leap, isn't it? Going out there on your own, doing a new thing. I mean, what if it doesn't work? What if nobody listens? What if all the tech comes crashing down around me? Now, over 5 years and over 250 episodes later, I know different, of course. Starting The Shift was the best thing I ever did. And it helps to have a partner like Shopify on your side to help. For a start, they'll help you get the word out, like you have a whole marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. Shopify's your commerce expert, with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to shipping, returns, everything. And if you get stuck, their award-winning 24/7 customer support is always around to advise. It's time to turn those what-ifs into... With Shopify today. Sign up for your £1 a month trial today at shopify.co.uk/shift. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift. That's shopify.co.uk/shift. What's the main difference of it being your own place?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin?
So how long have we got?
I'll tell you something that was my big fear. My big fear was that I wouldn't have anyone to just talk to, or even I should say more honestly, just listen to me when I would just like, hey, this is good tea. Like you get in this mindless kind of talk.
Yeah, that unimportant, mundane, domestic.
Right. And I actually was like, oh, it's going to be so awful to be alone in the house and then not.
Have you got a pet?
Well, yes, I had a dog. So I brought the dog did get talked to a lot more than he was used to. He was going deaf symbolically when that was happening. But that wasn't hard for me not to talk. I was like, oh, this was actually not a problem. This was nothing that I should have been, there's always the telephone. You see people and you're allowed to communicate with people. Yeah. But just that kind of mindless thing that mostly was done from room to room. You going, I can't hear you. Come in here and say it to me, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. I'd say living alone, this more has to do with my daughter leaving the house, but just to have things where you left them is really major, to have like, oh, the scissors are where I put the scissors down. They've not been taken and brought somewhere and you can't find them. So it's very nice, that kind of order of that. And also, I think about this a lot as, like I say, I'm single and would I even have another relationship? Do I want one? Nothing's on the horizon, but I think it's because of New York City. There's so much to do. And I think also because I am single and people know I'm single, people just invite me to things all the time. And often it's at the last minute. You know, if somebody cancels, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to this premiere. Will you just come with me? And if I'm free, I'll go to the premiere. Like, I'm not offended. I'm like, sure, I'll do that. I'm like
Yeah, you're not like, oh, you didn't ask me first.
Oh, no. I'm like, oh, yeah, who canceled on you? I'll go, you know,
Yeah.
and I get to dress up in black tie and suddenly I'm at a thing, you know, 2 hours later. And so I like that. And the freedom of that is really fun and not having to negotiate. Like when somebody asks me something, I don't have to say, oh, let me check, you know, and then it turns into like a fight, not a fight, but it turns into like the power dynamic in the relationship. And then it could be, oh, we're always doing what you want to do, or, oh, and that unfortunately towards the end of the relationship, I felt like that type of thing would become a proxy for other things, which is what happens when things are not going great. And so it really is liberating for me. I mean, we were just talking before we started recording about Edinburgh. You were saying, I was like, oh, when's the book festival? Oh, maybe I'll go. Oh, what dates? Okay, I could go. Like, that's something you can't do in a relationship, you know?
That's so true.
Just in the moment. Like, oh, yeah, you know what? Why not? I'll go to Edinburgh, you know, just from zero to Edinburgh. You know, you can do without checking and making sure that you are now honoring the other person enough. And do they want to go? And if you're there, what would they be doing? Are they just going to be like Mr. Maria Semple and you don't want that? Or, you know, just all of that stuff. So you just don't have to worry about that. So it's really freeing.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because even if you're both successful in a relationship, there still is that in your world. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, Mr. Maria Semple, or you become a Mr. or a Mrs.
Yes.
And you gain a surname that you didn't have.
That's right.
In both directions. That's annoying if you're a woman, but I perceive that men might have even more trouble with it.
Even more trouble. Well, there was a librarians conference in Seattle many years ago, and I wanted to go just to walk around and see the conference. I didn't even have, maybe a book had just come out. I wanted to know if George, my ex, could go, because it was like fun. You go, it's just all the booths and you get free arcs and it's just a fun thing to do. It was like down the street. So I was like, can George go? So they didn't know what his last name was. So it was really funny. We have a picture of him walking around with this massive placard that says George Bernadette. That's what they named him. I was like, sorry, I really didn't do that. I'm really sorry to do that to you. But we laughed at it, you know. But so that's like what you're talking about. He becomes George Bernadette, you know, when he has like, he's this massively successful writer himself, but not in my world, you know.
You could also take it that there's still an assumption that you've got his name. I mean, not Bernadette, obviously, but that kind of, you know, Mr. Semple.
Yes.
They might find that offensive, but actually the assumption is that you've taken his name.
That's right. Exactly.
Not that, you know,
no.
He's taken yours.
That's right. Isn't that funny? I know. And then that's like an insult where it wouldn't be for a woman.
It's such a weird thing, isn't it? What do you think kind of 10 years ago you would have thought about your life now?
I would have thought that I was protesting too much when I said I was happy. I wouldn't have believed it. Because I think I'm very much of the age, you know, and I write about it in Go Gentle, but very much of the age where your worth is determined by the
milestones.
Man. Yeah, by the man wanting you and choosing you. And that's how you are lovable. Some man says that you're lovable, you know? And so I think that 10 years ago, I think I would have thought it's really sad that she's alone. I mean, all the really bad messages. I'm just saying that that's like literally what I would have thought, because I had all those messages from society. That it's sad that nobody wants her, that she's lonely, and she's kind of tragically putting a good face on things. And I write about that. There's a thing about that Adora in the book creates this thing called the coven, you know, and
I love the coven.
Yeah, which is the women, like single women all like are slowly starting to buy apartments on the same floor. And they're all just going to kind of age in place. And she,
I'm so here for that.
I know, right? And it's so, and people are loving it. And I love the idea of it. And so in there, you know, she was trying to think of, like, she makes a joke about what to call it. One of them is as she mentions it, and she says, what would we call our tragically single, unloved women who society has cast off? She's like, no, I think we'll call ourselves the coven, or whatever it is, but she understands that. So I think that that's very present in the book because it really is like a shadow side of me, because I understand that that's the projection. And it's my projection as well, and it would have been 10 years ago. So I do think that there's this kind of model of like an Auntie Mame, Do you know that movie, Rosalind Russell, of just like the flamboyant, older, single woman?
Yeah.
But I think that to the extent that that's a positive thing, she has to just make her own party everywhere she goes. The idea of just a woman quietly living alone, happily being single. I just think, she's lying to herself. I wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah, and it kind of ties back into what we were saying right at the beginning, doesn't it? That kind of idea of you get here and you're like, oh, this is great.
Yes.
But you don't quite believe it. And I really noticed with the different ages of the women that I talk to on the podcast, and I never make a thing, unless somebody has like a really significant age, like the woman, Dr. Gladys McGarry, who was 103.
Oh, wow.
It's not really relevant, but it is, you can really notice that very often the women who are in their 60s are very much more at ease with themselves than the women. And the women, generalizing massively, if you're about to complain, it feels very much like the women in their early 40s are much more anxious and trepidatious about what's ahead, which is only natural because you haven't got there. And even though I think we're seeing many more role models in our lives than we used to, it does feel a little bit like women are allowed on our screens in their 60s as long as they don't look like it.
Right, exactly. As long as they're so plumped. And, there's this really upsetting reality show that's in the United States now called Age of Attraction, where you don't know the ages of the people you're dating. I watched an episode of it, but the women, you really can't tell. Like one of them, there was a man and a woman, and the man was saying, oh, there's an 18-year age difference. And I looked at the woman and I was like, is she 18 years older than him or 18 years younger than him? Because she could have just been fully Botoxed and plumped up and lasered. And then I actually looked it up on the internet because I didn't know. I was like, is this just an old lady who's had a lot of work done, or is she young? And she ended up being 18 years younger. But
so I thought you were going to say the other way, because I thought if the guy was older, he was more likely to look it.
Right. No, well, that's, and it was just surprising because I thought, wow, at least for me, it's gotten to the point where you can't even tell, if a woman is older or younger, because of all the women are allowed to. I mean, that's, and way I do feel bad for men that they're not allowed to dye their hair and have their facelifts. Maybe they are doing it now.
Yeah.
But, they're kind of like locked into the way they look, where women it's very plastic, I mean, and not the plastic surgery, but it's just elastic about how you can look.
Yeah, it's like when Minnie Driver came on and she was saying, I'm really happy to look at a craggy Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Why can't we do the same?
Yes. Yeah, very
why
much
is
so.
That part of the story of Go Gentle is Adora dealing with, like, having worked in the TV industry in the 80s and 90s. And so much of that, you're talking about being of a generation who had certain expectations and behaved in certain ways. And I think, certainly for me, but that kind of growing up and working in the 90s, there was so much. When I look back at what we put up with.
Oh, my gosh.
What we were absolutely expected to put up with. And I speak to younger women about it now, and they're all like, why didn't you call it out? Why didn't you do something? And I get that, and that's good that they feel like that. But it kind of like, you don't understand. We just would have, they're like, if you won't do it or put up with it, then someone else will.
Someone else will. And also, I think something that really I've become, I'm like a liberal, very unapologetic, like woke person. And I think part of it, and it's something I guess we're supposed to disavow and say, oh, sorry that we felt this way for a few years. Now we're going back into our box. But naming things, I mean, even something like microaggression. And look, people can weaponize that and it can be ridiculous, okay? Or like sexual harassment. Like we didn't, I remember I was the first generation where you would watch these sexual harassment things, laugh your ass off at them, think they were so funny and so stupid. And we had to watch them, and then we would all just mock and do mock, skits about them for every day in the writer's room. Like no one understood really what it was. And there weren't names for these things, And so I think with all of the structural racism, structural misogyny, all those things, we didn't, like, once it's named, you're like, oh, now I see it, I get it. So I think that was a really important thing that happened during Me Too and during all the Black Lives Matter, is just naming things, and it doesn't create it. And I think that to ignorant people, they're like, oh, you just invented that thing. And you're like, no, it was just
named it.
Insidious thing that happened that we all internalized, and now there's a name to it. We can step back and say, is that something we want to participate in?
Do you think when you were laughing along with the guys in the writer's room, were you laughing uncomfortably?
I'd like to say that I was, and I wasn't. It was much more subtle. To the extent that it made me uncomfortable, it was never that I felt like this is unfair to women. It wasn't from a feminist place. I'll just be honest. If it made me uncomfortable, it was like, oh, shoot, they don't want to fuck me, is why it made me feel bad. Because it would be like, oh, here are all the things we want to do to this actress. Or if I went, just very sexual stuff. And that it really like made me like hurt me on the inside. It was like, wow, I wish they were talking that way about me. I mean, that's how like horrible and messed up I was. I'm just talking about me. Yeah. But that was honestly what it brought out of me. It was like, I wish I could be someone who they wanted so badly. And I wasn't. Yeah. But I'd like to sit here and say, yes. I mean, who knows if that would even be better. Maybe that would be worse, to be offended and say nothing. But I really wasn't offended. I was pitching in because it was the way you kind of got proximity to power, and that's what you needed to succeed, because everyone else was jockeying for power. And that's how you got it, as being like cool, Gillian Flynn really writes that. Yeah, of like the cool girl. Yeah, the cool
girl, yeah.
It's so brilliant. And it really is like that. I mean, she fully named that phenomenon, is what that is you go along with it. And I think that in Gone Girl, it was written, as I do think she was ahead of her time, and she's just such a feminist, and I love her so much. But she was writing it with outrage, with like, we're supposed to know about relief, pictures and their stats, and we're supposed to know about grunge bands and like anal sex and all these things that we're like that because we're cool, and that's what we all want to do. And she wrote it from a place of like rage. I wasn't rageful. I was just like, please pick me. It came from a much more just pathetic place, which I think just has to do with just my childhood or whatever. But no, and the few people who are like women who are there who are just, this is bullshit, this is bad, they would just so quickly get fired. I mean, and it wasn't just that they would be fired. It wasn't that they would be fired for calling it out. It was worse. They'd be fired because it was like, they're not funny. They're not funny. They can't take a joke.
Yeah, that's it. You can't take a joke. And that was the culture, wasn't it, in the 80s and the 90s? If you ever showed any displeasure, it would be, she can't take a joke. And in your line of work, that's what you're there for.
That's literally what you're there for. So you have no career. And it's interesting that during all of this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, which I'm like totally obsessed with, is that I remember that there's a guy, Nathan Myhrvold, who was a head Microsoft guy. And he was in the Birthday Book and Jeffrey Epstein's Birthday Book, a really bad dude, right? Just a total creep, I will say, from the emails, he's one of these bad guys. And that I remember being at this TED conference a long time ago. It was like back, I don't even think maybe my daughter was 1 or something. So that would have been 20 years ago. And that he gave a talk. it was like Nathan Myhrvold, this computer genius, giving a talk. So everyone was all excited about his talk. It was a talk about, I've been out in nature and here's what I found. And it was this big genius. And all it was slides of whales and like giraffes with like enormous erections, you know, just like these huge erections on wild animals. And then, and everyone's laughing. And I remember being, you know, but I didn't have a name for it. I just remember just like, I want to get out of here. I don't like this. I don't like this. But I didn't quite understand what it was. And then I was reminded of it when in the Jeffrey Epstein birthday book, you know, they all contributed to, it said Nathan Myhrvold had photos he had taken of wildlife with huge erections. And I was like, yeah, you know, he's been doing that for years and everyone's been laughing.
That's
and it was
his shtick,
the club and you're all supposed to laugh at it. And, you know, as a woman, it's like, I don't want to see that. You know, I don't like that. That's offensive to me. You know, but I didn't even have like a name for it. I just thought I'm going to leave. And I couldn't figure it out. But it obviously, no fun to be around as a woman.
No, and it's, you know, it's like growing up in a time when that was like, I don't know whether you had this in the States, but we had this comedian, Benny Hill.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. And all the women with the boobs and he's always
and
grabbing their ass.
running around in their bikinis. He's always grabbing their ass or grabbing their tits and, you know, making lecherous faces. And that was like on family TV.
Family TV. And your parents were laughing at it and the adults. And so you laughed, like maybe there was something inside you, but you couldn't name it. You didn't know what it was. Maybe the best you could do, which is what I felt, because Benny Hill was on in the States, like late. But I remember just like, I don't like Benny Hill. And I think if I went into deep therapy or into a hypnotic state, it was like that young girl in me was like, that's scary to me. That's predatory. I don't want that. Like, what is that? That's dehumanizing. But you don't know what it is. You're just like, I don't want to watch Benny Hill, you know?
Yeah, it's not called anything.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was going back through the book on the train this morning, and I just opened it, and it must have been a place where I had cracked the spine when I read it the first time, and it fell open at a bit where it's 2018 and the Me Too and the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, when Christine Blasey Ford testified in Congress, and Adora says, for some reason, this is the one that undoes you. And that really struck me. And it really struck me that it fell open on it because that was the one that undid me.
Oh, see, I'm like literally have tears in my eyes now. I know we're both like just thinking about it. It just brings tears to my eyes.
It was so strange that of all of the things, because there had been so much. And all of the Weinstein and Cosby, and every time you turn round, there was another one. But that was the one that did it for me. And I don't know. I mean, I have some ideas about why that was. But it really struck me that for me, it was that undid me. And it was that made me really think long and hard about some stuff.
Well, and you know what's interesting is I think it just is occurring to me now about why that was the one, was because I think that was the first indication, and we didn't know it at the time, it didn't present it as a time, that all of this Me Too stuff was going to 100% go away. Like it didn't matter. Like women would so quickly go back to nobody cares. And it's kind of shocking to me how Me Too just almost like came and went, because I remember seeing her testify and being so moved by that and knowing what that's like about all the teenage boys and all. I think we've all had horrible situations that are similar to that in some way. You know, I mean, almost everyone I know has a story of it. For her courage to turn something small into something big, and I say small in quotes, you know, something that appears small, and to give it the proper size publicly. And then I remember it was like a break in the testimony. All the pundits were like, well, Brett Kavanaugh's not even going to come back. It's over for him. You know, how do you survive that? You can't survive that. And people literally were saying they're waiting for his withdrawal letter, you know? And this guy comes back and his unhinged performance and the victimization of this man, of this like privileged white man, this like felt this outrage at being named something and just screaming, I love beer, and like trembling and now he's a Supreme Court justice. And I think it was the first time that we're like, oh yeah, it's never going to be okay to be a
Teflon.
woman.
They are Teflon.
They are Teflon. And then we thought that things were happening and moving in our direction, and no, they're not. And I think that was the thing that was so awful, was the two parts of it, was just her alone, her testimony, but then what happened and how they just batted her away, and all women away with his confirmation.
Girl, winter is so last season. And now spring's got you looking at pictures of tank tops with hungry eyes. Your algorithm is feeding you cutoffs. You're thirsty for the sun on your shoulders. That perfect hang on the patio sundress. Those sandals you can wear all day and all night. And you've had enough of shopping from your couch. Done hoping it looks anything like the picture when you tear open that envelope? It's time for a little in-person spring treat. It's time for a trip to Ross. Work your magic.
This book is so, it's a classic you. It's funny, it's smart, it's full of big ideas. I mean, it really is like laugh out loud funny. And there's some really serious shit in there too. Mm-hmm. What was it about where you were in your life that made you think, actually, as well as writing about this life stage, I'm going to go back and tackle, I can't remember how I wrote it down and I can't remember it, so I'm going to have to get it off your own.
Okay.
Off your...
yes.
I wrote that letter you wrote, the press release.
Okay, yeah.
Well, you said you were feeling at the top of your game creatively, but struggling to metabolize events from your TV writing days. Why do you think that was the time you were trying to metabolize them? Why not 10, 20 years earlier?
Well, because Me Too. I mean, just the answer is Me Too, is because that's what really made me understand that I was both a victim kind of and a perpetrator, and it's a small p perpetrator, because I wasn't going around sexually assaulting people, but I was staying silent in the patriarchal system and kind of carrying water for it, without realizing exactly that I was doing that. That conflict is very interesting, and I still don't quite understand it. I don't know how to explain it. I feel a lot of guilt about it. And I feel like I should have known better, like you say, the young, generation. That, I mean, it's for my daughter, when I tell her about things, like, you should have gotten that fucker fired, and it's like, well, no, she doesn't swear. You should have gotten that jerk fired. That's one of the good things that she's learned from me, unfortunately, not to swear, because I do swear a lot. And she's I'm not going to turn into a swearing old person. But so she just says, why didn't you get them fired? Or just tell them to screw off, or just say, yeah, no. Or if somebody ever treated me that way, that would be the last time they ever saw me, instead of just throwing yourself back over and over and over. And it's very hard. So I feel kind of at a loss as to not being able to have an answer to that myself. So I thought that was really good. And I'll say with all of my books that I write about, that there's a coping mechanism. Like, I always think the books start when the coping mechanism stops working, and I think with Adora, she's got this whole stoic protocol where she desires what she has. She's figured out that the key to happiness is to only desire what you have, to not want more. She's created this great life for herself. And as I kind of write, I don't even know in the beginning I knew that I would put that in, but I kind of get restless as I write these characters, and I think, why is she like this? Why did she have, like, this must have been some kind of overreaction or a maladaptive like thing that she would get to the point where she's basically just saying there's no passion, to have reasoned her way out of feeling deeply. I'm like, what had to happen that she is like, has gotten this protocol that she just fully believes the story, that emotions are bad and that desire is bad. And so then I thought, oh, it had to come from learning a lesson that desire was bad, you know? And so that's why I think that when I really thought about what does that look like to be punished for desire, it's not, it was important to me not just to say like, oh, I wanted some guy who treated me badly. Like that, you know, not that, that's just some basic thing. Like I got my heart broken, you know, so now like I don't want to like expose myself to that again and be vulnerable to love. Like to me, I'm not interested in that story. What I was interested in is the desire that we have in society to desire respect, riches, fame, status, you know, to be just like this hungry ghost to just go after this stuff that we know at our age does not make you happy. But when you're young, you think it's going to make you happy and you chase it and you compromise yourself for it. You compromise tranquility at best, ethics at worst, to try to just get more, chasing that should make you happy. And so when I realized that that's really what it was, then really Hollywood was the only place to set it, you know, like why pretend? Why not go to like the belly of the beast in terms of like the dream factory, you know, of like the thing that's pumping out all of these like dangerous messages. And so I have experience with that. I always try to think about what can I write with authority? You know, I think some of the best writing in the book is really just the stuff about LA, what it was like back then. Now, nobody needs to know how like great that is, but I mean, I just know. And the people who were there then were like, I love, like you just named it, you named it, you know, and that's what you want. And it's just because I have those details, like I lived it, I remember it. And I just know exactly the right mindset, the references, just how people were behaving and interacting, what the dialogue was like. And so I always try to do that. And then, so I have some real authority and authenticity. And then I exaggerate, or not even exaggerate, but sometimes I exaggerate, but then I then change it for my story purposes, you know, but I really try to keep it deeply woven into what I know before I take off onto crazy story land, you know?
I mean, I was reading an interview where you had said that Bernadette was born out of your rage and the conflict of your rage and how much you loved your daughter.
Yes.
What was Go Gentle born out of?
I really do think it was born out of, it was the character of Adora that started it. You know, it was the character of Adora. And I think what it was born out of was wanting to write a woman who was unapologetic about her intellect. I'd never really seen that before.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Is that was the thing, because I, you know, read constantly. I'm just in all these book groups, or people go through life with me and are like, wait, now I'm in a book group with you? Like, yeah, we're reading this together. I mean, it's like very rare to have an interaction with me where I'm not saying, okay, we're going to be reading this together, right? And then I text them like, so have you bought the new, I just am now starting to read an Iris Murdoch. Is it called Bluebell or Bell something?
Oh,
anyway,
Bell something.
Yeah, so we picked some Iris Murdoch to read. And
serious book club.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, so it's like I just finished the Odyssey with some people.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I feel like I love improving my mind. I mean, nothing makes me happier than challenging myself intellectually, intaking new ideas, processing it, and learning from people. You know, we in our groups, we like hire experts to come and talk to us about stuff. Like I really am that's really where I'm the most happy. And I feel like that was something that's not really valued in, like in order to do that, you're like a character. You would be like maybe a spinster, or it's not feminine, you know, to be like that. And so I think that's what I was really
it's not valued by society, is it?
No, it's not valued. It's not like sexy. It's not like demure, you know, it's just to be so just loud and fully engaged with your intellect. And I wanted to root that person in real life, and just have her living among us and just apologetic about what, how she lives. Like early on, she really goes through life quite happy. And she has this little shtick with a guard who patrols the block around the museum where she works. He always, they have a shtick where he goes, whatever you're on, I'd like to be on that, and she always has a new comeback. And one time she says a life of the mind. And another one, she says, philosophy, it begins in wonder, it's just the idea of just like, that's what sustains me. So I think that was, and I don't know that it was the rage that exactly of that I would say that there was rage underneath it, but it was a bit of a defiant impulse in me that I wanted to write about a woman like that. And then also it was very important for me because, again, from all of this kind of excavation from Me Too and thinking about my time as a comedy writer and also earlier books that I've written, is I really wanted to try to write a woman who never spoke against herself, who never put herself down for comedy, because that's what I feel like that's
so true.
I
now
think
you say
since,
it. Yeah.
Since like Bridget Jones, it's like God bless Helen Fielding. But I mean, it was always like, I'm fat, I'm a mess, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, the self-deprecation.
And that's what female humor is. I'm a slut. I'm, disgusting in some ways. And I felt like so much of it. I remember when there were a lot of big women comedians. I went to this festival. I'm not going to name these women comedians, but I remember going to this festival and the men were there like, here's how much I masturbated today, or I masturbated with one hand and ate Cheetos with the other hand, and whatever it was like, and then women would come on and basically do the same shtick. And it felt like this race to the bottom of just like who could demean themselves more for laughs. And I think there was a big that for a while was what female comedy was, that it was still using the male language.
It's back to the cool girl thing.
Yes, exactly. And that's what it was. And so, my book before this, Today Will Be Different, that I love, but the woman was a mess. She was like a mess. She just like didn't have her head on straight. And there's a thing where I really thought, I don't want a woman to call herself crazy ever. And I don't want her ever putting herself down. And can you write something joyful and fun and comedic with that? And I think I did.
Yeah. And you know what? To my shame, I hadn't noticed.
Right. Well, I was hoping nobody would notice. I mean, I didn't, and I never write a line about it. I never put it,
but she doesn't.
No.
At any point.
And, there's a lot of themes.
Fascinating.
There's a lot of themes that when you understand what the themes are, you'll then like go through the book and just name the theme and put it in so people get it. But this was a secret thing that I just thought this is a contract that I'm making between me and myself, that I just want to see if I can do this because of my journey where I felt like so much of my humor had been attacking women. And I thought, can I do it? And I want to do it. And I think I can. And it almost was like impossible. I felt like an impossible task. Like I had to invent it for myself. And it was just the thing that kept me going and kept me alive. And I would just on a default write about her putting herself down. It's like, no, not going to do it. Not going to put that in the book. And so it was kind of fun for me.
But it is such a default, isn't it? That a woman is funny. It's at her own expense.
Yes. At her own expense, or she's being mean to other people. She's also not mean about people.
No.
I mean, she's mean a little bit about Layla, one of the characters, who she's kind of dismissive of, but then she realizes it's because she's jealous of her later. You know what I mean? It's like she kind of owned, like she's a snob about this woman. She's like, what a joke this woman is. And then when as the book goes along, she realizes, no, it's because like, I'm afraid like to love as much as she loves, so I have to make fun of her, and so even that, I won't let her just mock somebody, that I didn't like that. Yeah.
So how did you get into stoicism?
I got into stoicism. I don't quite know. I remember reading about it in the New York Times once, and whatever it said just felt really logical. And even just reading about it felt like a relief, which was, and I think that the core kind of truth of Stoicism is really the AA Serenity Prayer, but it was written 300 BC, which just says, all you need to know to be happy is some things are in your control, some things are outside of your control. Only concern yourself with what's in your control and you will be happy. And that's really the serenity prayer, right? And it's Buddhism of suffering is desire. It's all of this stuff. It's just don't want things, don't want to control outcomes, don't want to control people. It's the let them theory, it's don't try to control things that are out of your control. And in Stoicism, it's really a protocol for using reason to differentiate between what's within your control and what's outside of your control. And so, Plato and Aristotle did a lot of work on the 4 virtues, right? And the virtues are really the only thing in your control is your character, which are the 4 virtues, which are wisdom, justice, which is just being kind of kindness. It's not just about just being a justice warrior. It's like about how you treat people. So it's basically...
So kind of fairness.
Yes, fairness, right. And so it's just about being a good person, So wisdom is about differentiating what's in and out of your control. Justice, which is about being kind to people. Courage, which is about, strength and doing the hard things. Resisting conformity and these type of things. And then the last one is temperance, which is discipline, humility, and, hard work is under courage. There's acceptance, patience, that's under temperance. And so basically the Stoics kind of figured out that if you only focus on those 4 things, then that is a path to happiness. And that it's not about, I like to think of philosophy as salvation through reason and not salvation through faith. You don't have to take anyone's word for it. There's no magic. There's nothing you have to suspend. It's available to you right now with what you have with your human brain, because we're the only people who can reason. We're the only animals, that really are capable of reason. So kind of by definition, we should use that, the thing that makes us so unique, and apply it to happiness. So I started reading the Stoics. I think I read 1 book about it. And then I just read Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and just kept reading them over and over. And I would spend every morning sitting and doing my Stoicism, and I would read it, I would underline it, I would copy it. I then kind of came up with the practice for myself because I couldn't find any, you read it, but then how does that change your life? So I actually I kind of came up with the whole protocol for myself.
So you did it yourself. I was going to say, is there, everybody wants an easy way in. Is there a kind of, where would someone start?
Well, so I think so I think reading the Stoics themselves, they're really easy to read. It's not hard reading. Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
Says the woman who's just done the Odyssey for a book club.
No, but it's like Epictetus. There's this Sharon LaBelle who does this translation of Epictetus that's so sweet and wonderful and so easy to understand. Seneca's letters are also really great. Ryan Holiday, who is the daily Stoic, he's written 15 books on Stoicism, and he's really the guy, the Stoic guy. And he's fantastic. There's a book of his called The Daily Stoic. He's a huge podcaster. He has this whole kind of industry. But the Daily Stoic is really amazing. The book that's a compilation of these kind of daily things. And I'd say the Daily Stoic plus reading the Stoics. And then I kind of took it further for myself. And then I just got really into it and I love it. And every time I kind of drift away or if I spend 4 or 5 days without doing my Stoicism and then I sit down with it and I'm like, oh God, I love this so much. It's just endlessly fascinating and sweet and helpful and challenging. It's just fun. I really like it. I have nobody to do it with. I'm just alone in my little... I've tried to get Stoic groups together, but nobody is interested.
We'll join your coven, but we won't join your Stoic group.
No, exactly. We won't do philosophy with you.
How long have you been doing it?
About 12 years.
Quite a while then. Mm-hmm. Post Bernadette.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Post Bernadette. And it really was a response. I mean, now that I think of it, I'm putting it together. But it truly was during those years when I was in Hollywood doing, developing these shows that didn't go. If there's anything that's set up to make you feel crazy and be unhappy. It's like the Hollywood development process. And I think that at first I really applied it to that, of just like trying to stay sane.
Yeah, you can't control the outcome.
No, and the way people behave and people lie to you and they, it's just a bunch of chaos. And so I was not stoic in the face of that, let's just say, at all. Yeah. No, it's so crazy making. And so I think I kind of needed to come up with something that was going to save me, because it certainly wasn't myself in that situation.
I want to talk to you all afternoon, but I better not. I'm going to ask you the questions I always ask at the end. I don't know if you're a SWAT or not, so I don't know whether you've prepped.
I'm not prepped.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's my favourite. What is your emotional age?
I really have to feel like it's my age now. I feel like I'm really living some hard-earned wisdom. Am I supposed to say that I'm like 6?
No, you can be anything you want. I think I am roughly my current age. Sometimes people say like 6. Sometimes people say 100 and something.
Yeah, like
some people say both.
Yeah, or like a teenage girl or whatever. Or it's very hard. What's interesting about that is when I think back on the ages that I've been, I really associate it with an emotional pain that I'm not in right now. You know what I mean? That is so the thought of like, oh, a 20-year-old, but no, I had so many delusions and I was so wrong about so many things in my 20s that I'm not that. And I'd say like that goes for every age, So maybe it's like I just don't have the imagination to look outside of like my age, but that's what I think I am.
Give us a book recommendation.
Are you all in love with Loved and Missed by Susie Boyd?
You're not the first person to recommend it, but I still haven't read it.
Oh my gosh, that's just my go-to. It's just going to melt your heart. It's so incredible. It's kind of the book to recommend these days, but I have to. Oh, also, the other book that I've discovered that I'm in love with, you all know, because you got there way before I did, was The Light Years by Elizabeth Jane Howard.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I love that book. Oh my gosh, those two were like my favorites from the last year.
What advice would you give younger women?
If you're passionate about something, drop everything else and pursue it, because passions are fleeting. All the other stuff, the mechanics that go with pursuing passion is available to you anytime. Like that will always be there. The problem solving and how to do it. But if something is really alive in you that feels kind of irrational, an idea you have. And of course, I'm a writer and I'm thinking about writing, but I would say just kind of with anything else. I mean, assuming it's not a manic episode, which maybe you have to just like check on that, really good things come from passion, and don't be afraid of it and just see where it goes. Like get it down. If you're writing it, get it down. If it's an idea for a business, just write it all out. In 2 weeks, look back and, I was having a manic episode. Or you'd be like, wow, that's actually quite brilliant. And now I'm going to figure out how to do it.
Who's your old broad role model?
Auntie May.
What's your superpower?
My ability to get shit done.
That's a superpower. And last one, how many fucks do you give?
Between 0 and 1. I'd like to say 0, but that would be dishonest.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.
Capture your favorite summer feeling with Pandora Jewelry. Discover a collection inspired by the sunshine, freedom, and moments that make the season unforgettable. From sun-kissed metals to personalized pieces, ready to be engraved with your summer mantra. Each design moves with you, from beach days to golden nights and every memory in between. Shop Pandora Jewelry's new summer collection, in-store or online at pandora.net, and let your summer unfold.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's Omni-Shade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.